My name is Jordan Hoffman Kahle, and I am the lay leader here at Trinity. Today, I'm very grateful for Pastor Tino's invitation to let me share the message today, and I'm humbled by the opportunity to spend a few minutes up here with all of you. Before we dive in and get started, will you please pray with me? God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of each heart here be acceptable in your sight, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Trinity, today we're going to be talking about mercy. It's one short word that has a lot of different meanings. So I'd be curious to hear from all of you to start. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word mercy? Feel free to shout it out. Forgiveness, grace, kindness, charity, compassion, care. All right. What I'm hearing from you all is that mercy is one short word with many different meanings. And as I've been preparing for this sermon, I found the word mercy is a little bit hard to pin down. In English, as we just heard, we use it to mean giving charity, caring for others, forgiving, showing love and kindness, letting things go without seeking retribution. Today, we're going to be focusing on Jesus' beatitude about mercy. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. I had to read this beatitude a lot of times, maybe a couple dozen, before I started to uncover some of the meanings I'm going to be sharing with you all today. And what helped me start to uncover the beauty and the paradox of this beatitude, this simple sentence that hinges on one word with many meanings, was to repeat it to myself many times. So throughout the message today, I'm going to invite you all to do that with me as we walk through this passage. So let's try it together for a start. I'll say it once, and then I'll invite you all to say it with me. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. One time together. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. If you know me well, it's no secret that I am a word nerd. I love learning about the histories of words and what the word roots tell us about what the word used to mean, what we have used it to mean in the past, and what it means today. So you can bet that if I'm going to give a message centered around one word, I'm going to need to look into the history of the word. And what I've learned is that the Greek word that's used in Matthew's gospel for mercy, eleos, has just as many meanings as the English word for mercy. So it didn't help me pin it down too much. It can mean acting consistently with the revelation of God's covenant. We've derived some words in English from this word, eleos. We use this Greek root to make English words that mean things like altruistic and charitable. And just the other day, I was driving through the Northeast, and I noticed a coffee shop named after this Greek word, eleos. So I looked it up online, and sure enough, this coffee shop is designed to give back to the community, to show mercy. So we're still using this Greek word today to mean giving to others without expectation of anything in return. But we can't stop there because Jesus almost certainly was not speaking in Greek when he gave the Sermon on the Mount. Instead, he would have used a Hebrew or Aramaic word for mercy, chesed. Now, chesed doesn't have a direct translation in English, but as we English speakers often do, we've made some attempts. We often translate chesed as God's love and God's mercy for us. Steadfast, enduring, unbreakable love. We sometimes also translate it as mercy, faithfulness, loving kindness, steadfast love, and goodness. Chesed is not just God-like mercy, it is God's mercy. So we have mercy, eleos, and chesed, 3 words, all with many meanings. Jesus teaches us that blessed are those who show mercy, because they will receive mercy. But how are we supposed to know what it means to show mercy or to receive mercy when the concept of mercy is so vast? We can start with looking at this beatitude in context. As we've been studying the Beatitudes, we've learned that in each one, Jesus flips the world's teachings and expectations on their heads and tells us something unexpected. That we are blessed when we grieve. We are blessed when we are poor in spirit. These are unexpected truths, almost paradoxes. They don't make sense to us right away because they're so far outside of our traditional ideas about how the world works. So we can count on the fact that in this beatitude, Jesus has something unexpected to teach us about mercy. So as we dive in, I invite you to say it together again, friends. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Here's the first unexpected thing I've learned from this beatitude. The world's concept of mercy and Jesus' concept of mercy in the Sermon on the Mount are at odds with each other. The world's traditional image of seeking mercy is a prisoner begging in front of a judge for a more lenient sentence. And in states like ours, like Missouri with the death penalty, that can include a prisoner begging for their very life. We've created a legal system where prisoners have to rely on lawyers to use fancy doctrines like habeas corpus and overcome strict burdens of proof and cite statutes and show that they either were intellectually disabled or wrongfully convicted to be able to receive mercy from the death penalty. In my legal career, I've been in the courtroom while death penalty appeal was argued. And I'll tell you that between all the legal jargon and the formalities, it was almost have been easy to dissociate and forget that what these judges and these lawyers were talking about was whether the state had the power to end a human life. That's how we dole out mercy in America. The fate of prisoners begging for mercy rests in the hands of lawyers in suits and judges in robes. But Jesus' teaching turns this concept of one-way, power-based mercy upside down. When I read the Beatitudes as a whole, I notice something. The other Beatitudes start with an image of a person in what the world would view as a place of weakness, whether it's grief, meekness, or desperation. But the Beatitude in Matthew 5:7 breaks this pattern. It sticks out. This Beatitude starts with an image of someone offering mercy, which traditionally would have come from a place of power. And it ends with that same person receiving mercy. What this beatitude tells us is that we're all in need of mercy. Not just the poor, not just the powerless, not just those we've labeled criminals and offenders and outsiders. No, we all need mercy, even and perhaps most especially if we see ourselves as the ones poised to give it. True mercy, God's mercy, upends our concepts of power. It flips the script because it reminds us that we're all in need of mercy. Not just the prisoner, but also the judge. Not just the citizen, but also the ruler. Not just our unhoused neighbor holding a sign at the intersection, but all of us who pass by. And I think most especially, all of us who pass by. We all need mercy. And maybe those of us who the world has given the most power are the most in need of mercy. So let's say it together again, friends. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. And that brings me to the next unexpected lesson this beatitude has for us. True mercy, God's mercy, is relational, not transactional. When we think of someone as merciful, our first instinct might be to think that they have the mercy to give, that they don't need mercy for themselves. But true mercy does not just go in one direction. It cannot come from a place of moral superiority. Instead, it's a give and take. It's a closed loop, fueled by God's love. We all have some mercy to give, and we all need to get some mercy too. I think this truth is especially important to remember for those of us who are in helping professions and helping vocations. Those of us who dedicate our daily lives, whether that be inside or outside of work, to serving others and giving of ourselves. I've been here at Trinity long enough to notice a theme. There are a lot of helpers here. I've met educators, pastors, healthcare workers, social workers, caregivers, nonprofit workers, and the list goes on. These are good people who have chosen to use their God-given gifts to give back to others and to this community. And that's a beautiful thing. But it can also be hard, can't it? It can wear us down. And it gets especially wearisome if we're trying to give of ourselves from the world's concept of mercy and not God's mercy. Because true mercy, God's mercy, is relational, not transactional. The supply, it can't run out because God's mercy moves in a circle rather than a one-way street. When we tap into God's mercy, the kind that Jesus is describing in our word today, we aren't the givers or the receivers. We're just part of a cycle, a God-propelled cycle that won't run out of momentum as long as we don't fight the force of God's mercy. I've seen this play out in my own life, and I'm still learning every day to step into this flow of relational mercy instead of playing into the world's tired tropes of transactional mercy. I'm in one of those helping professions I mentioned. I work as a nonprofit attorney, and I represent low-wage workers who have been wronged on the job. But let me tell you, in my role, I am not the one giving mercy. I am the one in need of it. I am the one receiving it. Now, maybe in the world's eyes, I may have privilege and power. I have a law degree, I have racial and class privilege, and I do have some knowledge I can share to help folks address their legal issues. So under the world's paradigm of mercy, which is power-based and goes one way, the world might see me as the one poised to give mercy. But friends, I know the truth. I need mercy. I need mercy from my clients when we're not able to achieve the outcome we'd hoped. I need mercy from people who call me when they reach out to me and I have to tell them I can't take their case. I need mercy, friends. And still, too often, I find myself clinging hard to the world's construct of one-way, power-based mercy, not remaining open to receiving mercy instead. Here's an example. Sometimes I'll be on a phone call where I'm delivering some bad news about a case or letting a caller know I'm not able to represent them. And often, whether in English or in Spanish, the person on the other end of the line will tell me, God bless you, que Dios la bendiga. Now, the first few times this happened, I stopped in my tracks. I was sure there had been a misunderstanding. So I backed up and I said something like, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure you understand. I'm not able to help with your case. And the person on the other end said, I understand, but God bless you, que Dios la bendiga. The second time this happened on the phone, I did the same thing. I was given a blessing that I hadn't done anything to deserve, and instead of returning it right away, I backed up to make sure there had not been a misunderstanding. Once more, the person on the other end said, I know, abogada, that's lawyer in Spanish, but God bless you, que Dios la bendiga. And within the same week, this happened yet again. I was offered a blessing when I hadn't done anything to deserve it. And by the third time this happened, I felt a loving gut punch from God. I'd been seeing my role and our interactions as too limited. I was looking at my work as if the care and the giving could only go one way. But in those moments, these generous people offered me mercy. I did nothing to deserve it, and yet they blessed me. My feeble attempts at the world's transactional mercy had been thrown off the tracks by God's true relational mercy. So by the third time I was given a blessing I hadn't done anything to earn, I had learned finally not to question it. I just returned it and I said, thank you. God bless you too. Let's say it together again, friends. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. And Trinity, that brings me to the last unexpected lesson I'm taking from this beatitude this morning. True mercy comes from God, not from us. I admit, when I first read the definitions for chesed, the Aramaic word Jesus most likely used for mercy in this beatitude, I felt intimidated. Chesed, God's steadfast, enduring, unbreakable love, translated as loving kindness, steadfast love, goodness, care, and most frequently, mercy. Now, I know myself, and I know I can aspire to embody these things, to be merciful, but I still feel intimidated when I learn about this word, because I know myself, and I know that while I aspire to these things, I'll never be able to fully grasp them as much as I would like. But the more I read this passage and learn about the concept of chesed, I now understand, as the crowd at the Sermon on the Mount would have understood, that Jesus was talking about God's mercy and that we are invited to take part in it. We're not expected to muster it on our own. In the Psalms, David uses this word many times to describe his awe and gratitude for God's steadfast love and mercy. God even uses this word to describe God's self several times throughout the Hebrew scriptures. And on the occasions where it's used to describe a relationship between two humans, it's used to describe something much larger, a holier covenant and promise, something bigger than these two people themselves. The crowd listening to the Sermon on the Mount would have known this and known what Jesus was talking about. When Jesus talked about chesed, he was talking about God's mercy that powers the cycle of giving and forgiving and receiving, of giving mercy and getting mercy back. If we rely on ourselves and our own imaginations and strengths to give mercy, we'll come up with a weak, legalistic, watered-down mercy, the kind that exists in our courts and our transactions, not the kind that exists in God's kingdom. But if we rely on God to give mercy and get mercy, we'll step into this flow of relational mercy that Jesus is talking about in Matthew 5:7. There will always be enough mercy for each of us because it is coming from God and it is flowing from each one of us unto another and then back again. It does not run out because it can't run out, because it comes from God. So friends, I invite you to say those words together one more time, and this time, let's really let it sink in. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Thanks be to God on this day.